So I'm sharing my screen here. I hope you guys can see it. I messed up a bit. I think it's a video file, so I'm not going to go full screen today. But again, thank you so much for joining, everyone. We have an exciting call again today. We got Teddy, we got you guys, we got Helen. So yeah, I'm excited. As usual, the call is being recorded, so if you're watching this on YouTube or on whatever platform you're on, you can just scan this QR code and join us in Discord live and come actually chat with us. And I would recommend it. We have these really cool conversations here in the Discord on a monthly basis. We try to do these events, talking all about Web3 games. A little bit about Cartesi if you're new here. So, Cartesi basically allows you to, deploy app-specific rollups, essentially giving your application or your game a full CPU, which is actually really cool, right? If you want to build, games essentially on chain, you get this, almost unbounded, computational scalability. At least you're not bounded by block space, right? That is. You're not competing with other applications for that block space. So actually, if you're trying to build on-chain games, going the app-specific route is becoming kind of the norm, right? The second big advantage of Cartesi is that you have this expressive general-purpose execution environment that allows you to run essentially Linux programs, right? You have this RISC-V virtual machine, and that can run, unmodified Ubuntu, and essentially allows you to run stuff like existing physics engines, existing games such as Doom, all of that, on this virtual machine. But it makes the game development process very, very accessible and also increases your productivity in the same way. You can also do things that weren't necessarily possible before, or at least with a lot less hassle. Today's agenda, so we will have a couple ecosystem updates first, and then dive into this AMA with Teddy here, who's on stage, and dive a bit deeper into Dazzle and what Ethereus have been cooking behind the scenes. But first, let's start with ecosystem updates, and I'll ask Helen to give us a short update on the grants program. Hey, Helen.
Yeah, thanks, Max. So I'm Helen, leading grants at Cartesi. We launched wave one of our grants program where we are allocating 500K to 4 different categories of funding. And one of those categories is gaming. And we are looking to support and promote development of games that leverage Cartesi. And yeah, we are looking to fund projects that want to build on Cartesi. We are giving out grants between 5K to 50K per project. So I wanted to plug you on that, and I'll share the link to learn more about our grants program on the chat as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Helen. Indeed, really excited about this grants program. If you're considering to build a game, if you have some cool ideas, this is a great way to get started with some initial funds and actually start building. So really excited about this grants program. Please, reach out to Helen or just on the Discord if you have some questions. Okay, next ecosystem update. I wanted to give a little bit of an introduction to Rives, which is a RISC-V verifiable entertainment system, or at least Rives stands for that. And, it's a project that we're building with a team that's actually in the audience here. So I see Arthur, Felipe, Carlo, Lino, and Eduardo. And it's sort of an offspring of World Arcade / Doom Arena that won a hackathon prize last year in New York. And we're actually building this out now as a product. And I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an intro today, so to get you up to speed with what we've been doing and what the whole idea here is. So in short, Rives is an on-chain fantasy console, and I'll get to what a fantasy console is in a second. But, taking a step back, if you think about it, if Ethereum is sort of this world computer, then Rives is the World Arcade, or that's at least our aim, right? So sort of an arcade backed by Ethereum security. The idea here is that you can essentially own cartridges, proof scores, and contribute with infinite creativity. At least that's our vision or mission or where we are trying to go. About fantasy consoles. So if you're not familiar with fantasy consoles yet, they're actually very interesting. And they're small consoles or consoles that only exist virtually, right? Not physically. So if you think of like a Game Boy, but that never had actual hardware implementation, right? It's purely virtual, and it allows you to play cool games, right? That are playable in a browser and in this fantasy console emulator, and it provides kind of a restricted environment to build games. And these fantasy consoles such as Take 80 and Pico 8 led to a ton of interesting games that were developed. And they have thriving communities and lots of really cool games that you can play. I'd recommend checking those out. Pico 8, for example, actually led to the birth of games such as Celeste, which are now pretty big game franchises as well. Now, fantasy console is the first step. What Rives is trying to do is actually create an on-chain fantasy console, as I mentioned before. And what does that mean, right? Essentially, the key primitive here is score verifiability. And we're essentially leveraging the Cartesi machine to do that, right? Obviously, we're in the Cartesi Discord here. So the key thing is here that you're essentially playing the game in the browser Cartesi machine, in an in-browser Cartesi machine, ensuring reproducibility. After that, you receive a log file with all your moves. So, assume that you're playing Snake. The log file will include all the moves of that Snake game, and you will submit that log file to the blockchain, and that log file will then be verified and replayed using the Cartesi VM and the Cartesi protocol to ensure that you actually achieve that score, and then you enshrine your score on a leaderboard, right? It's now a verifiable leaderboard, which is truly unique. To give you guys a little bit of an idea of what things might look like, you're playing your games, you can start, stop, and then you can submit your score to the leaderboard and mint potentially an NFT or some representation of that score as well. Now, this is only the beginning. The idea here is that Rives makes it a lot easier to potentially add additional games that already exist or that you're developing to this fantasy console, and it handles the blockchain and verifiability side for you, and we will try to add new features as we kind of go down this rabbit hole and discover what actual affordances blockchain can bring to games in general. So for now it's still really minimal, very simple, but we want to add features along the way and are truly looking to get people involved that are interested in this and see kind of what your needs are and help you out along the way. So please reach out if you're interested in this. We will also have an event in Denver at ETH Denver on February 29th. So if you're around, please hop over and you can actually play some of these games live. And yeah, you can check out the Twitter and the Discord here. I'll paste in the links into the description in a bit when I'm not talking anymore. But yeah, please give us a follow and reach out to any of us if you have any questions. Okay, now we can actually go on to the AMA, which is with Teddy here. Teddy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks for joining. So I'm really excited to have you on. I think I want to ask everyone here in the chat to either come on stage or drop your questions in the chat. We want to have an open conversation with Teddy about what he's been building, around Dazzle. So please ask away, but I'll just get started here, and maybe Teddy, you can give us a bit of an introduction of maybe yourself first and how you kind of started getting into this either gaming and then later on blockchain space.
Let me actually share my screen. I think it would be Oh, I need to change my settings. Because I would kind of want to go through like a very short deck to.
Oh shit, okay, that's awesome. Let's do it.
Hold on, let me get this. Okay, I need to exit. I'll be right back.
Cool. Yeah, in the meantime, I'll drop in the Discord actually. It's a good thing to do in the meantime, maybe. So this link should be a link to the Discord. Feel free to join if you're interested. And let's see if Teddy is back. In the meantime, please join me on stage if you're interested. I'm really lonely up here all alone. That was a joke, by the way. But yeah, great monologue. Oh, Teddy's back. Hey, Teddy.
Let me try this again. Sorry, like when I restarted, I was trying to download updates for Discord.
Oh yeah, I had that as well.
Share this screen and go live and see if this works. Oh, here we go. Okay, so I guess I wanted to go through a short deck just for everybody who's not familiar with Dazzle, I guess, and also to introduce myself a bit, since I believe, even though we've been talking about Dazzle in previous calls, I've never really introduced myself and my background. So I actually didn't start off as a game developer. I first started working at Microsoft doing enterprise software, and then I spent a few years over there, and then me and my buddy Dennis, we decided that we wanted to make games because we love games, and we spent a few years as indie devs, and we worked on a project for also about 5 years, and then we went to like a few events, and we met a bunch of other indie developers, and we basically reached a conclusion that we wanted to do something that could bring together indie devs and collaborate with each other. But due to like the lack of resources or lack of technology, it's hard for indie developers to work together. So for us, we wanted to be able to share digital assets and on a third-party platform. So naturally, decentralization, blockchain was the perfect technology for this. So after we finished working on our game, we started our current company, Aetherus. First, we wanted to basically, well, right now, we still are working on it. We've been building a chain that's basically to serve digital assets as NFTs, and it's customized for games. But as we're doing it, we love games, so we also feel like we must have a game to launch with the chain. So we've also been building a game called Dazzle. So it's a match three, 3 versus 3 puzzle I guess, kind of puzzle fighter-ish, where you have your own characters and each characters are NFTs and you play against another player. So we as traditional game developers, we wanted this experience to be both fully Web 2 and fully Web 3. And the reason is that we wanted casual players and almost anybody to be able to hop in to play. But then we also want to leverage Web3 technology to make some of the experiences that we envision to be the future to actually happen, such as being able to trade your characters, which naturally become NFTs. And then when these NFTs become very valuable, then stakes become high. And when stakes are high, you could create tournament modes that become very serious, and therefore you need verifiable computation. That's where Cartesi comes into play. So basically, we have different modes ranging from fully centralized modes and to fully decentralized mode, which obviously uses Cartesi technology. And for our NFTs, we basically have we have a lot of body parts. We have basically let's see, what is it? I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 different body parts. So we have a lot of combinations that we can make from this. And that's basically a short summary of what's going on with Dazzle. So we've been doing a small play test. I wouldn't call it a real beta test because it's actually more like pre-alpha. But basically, for anyone that's interested, please join our Discord and let us know if you're interested in playtesting, and then we'll let you in on the development build that we've been working on. And I can show the development build a bit right now. As you guys will see, it's still very raw. We've made modifications to the UI. So originally the game we wanted it to be mobile first, but then for the UI, but then right now we're targeting for a web first release and then slowly migrate to mobile. So we've added like UIs to take advantage of the whole screen space, like this one. And we've also added we've been calling it a rift mode, where you could it's like a survival mode where you keep on fighting the CPU, and like at any stage you could decide to stop and either obtain a reward in the in-game currency, or use the in-game currency to buy a Dazzle that randomly is available for you to buy. So basically the game is to clear gems and use one of your characters to attack the other team, and with different skills to use. So I think I'll close this window now and go back over here. Not this button.
Awesome. Yeah. So follow Teddy's. Just take a screenshot or use your phones to get the QR codes. And no, super cool. So Teddy, you want to give us a bit of what led to the idea of Dazzle, and what was this culmination that it led to?
So basically we wanted to have, so I think it was a few combinations of things. So one thing was that it started off like as a kind of a tech demo where we wanted to showcase our chain, and then also we were talking to your founder Eric about the game, and like we were interested in also leveraging Cartesi technology on it. So as we developed it, we kind of had more and more ideas about actually making it into a full-fledged product. And we always wanted to make something that would showcase the value of Web3 technology, but also seem familiar enough for the common player for them to try out.
Cool. And what were the what were the learnings that you had, like kind of coming from Web 2, and how did how did that conversation go, or what convinced you to actually try building on Cartesi?
I think it was mainly because we were able to use RISC-V technology and use any programming language, because for us, we would think that if we had to, well, one thing, I don't think the game engine would be able to run directly on the EVM. I don't think that's going to be possible, first of all. And second of all, just being able to verify games. It's one of the things that, like, as game developers, we've been wanting to achieve in a way that that's transparent and for players to trust. Because before we made this game, we also were making a head-to-head online game, and we did have something that's I would say it's not like a Cartesi machine, but then we would also send our game states and game inputs to our backend server, and then for the backend server to verify the moves and to check whether there's a discrepancy or somebody may have been cheating. But then it wasn't very sophisticated. It did not have any kind of signing or blockchain-like properties, which is why we find this to be very interesting.
Interesting. Got it. And what were the, I think you touched on this a bit in the presentation, but for you, what are the main sort of affordances of blockchain tech that you want to tap into? Because I guess you have that question of why not just build a Web 2.5 game? Why do you actually want to have some of the elements on chain?
Yeah, so there's a few parts to it. So the first part is having assets to be tradable. So I'm kind of showing my age, but then back about 15, 20 years ago, most online games, you get to trade your items, and then you could sell it on eBay or some other platform, and it's basically a free-for-all. And it was fun, and it's something that we really appreciated. But then most online games right now, they take away that freedom. But we feel like players do want that freedom, because there's still a lot of websites that where players post their whole account to sell instead of their items, because they can't sell their items individually anymore. And so from that perspective, we feel like in the future there's going to be games that's going to have their items minted as NFTs, where players value them and want to trade them. And that's basically our starting point. And obviously, like I mentioned, because it's something that's going to be valuable, and also as we all know that esports is always growing, and it's going to be more and more important to be able to verify whether somebody is cheating at all. So that's why we think like Cartesi technology is also very important.
Got it. I see Bruno is here on stage. Bruno, you have a question?
Hey guys, everyone. Teddy, good to see you here, and congrats for the presentation. That looks really nice. Since we are in the game session here, and you see through this extensive experience on designing the game, selecting the balance between centralizing, decentralizing the logic. Can you share with everyone here how was your journey on how to select part of your game would be run Cartesi for to be able to have a very high computation, and which part was out of the machine, and how you kept the balance. If you could share the experience of everyone here, I think will give some light to the builders and builders on how I went through those challenges in short.
That's a great question. So I think I should first touch on the part where when we first started on this game, we actually were thinking of just focusing it as a completely Web3 game. It was actually in mid-development where we went back and felt like, oh, we should start adding Web2 elements in there, because we felt like in order for we think it's awesome and it's very important to expand the Web3 gaming horizon, in the sense that in the future there's definitely going to be a lot of games that's going to be fully decentralized. But then I think we're going to need the power of Web2 game developers to fully realize this dream, and we need a way to segue both players and developers into this new world. So that's why we added the Web2 part. So the way that the game works right now with Web2 is that any player can enter the game with, well, right now we log in with a wallet, but we're probably gonna first go away with that. They'll probably be able to just log in with a email account, and then later on they can tie in their wallet if they want to. So when they play on centralized mode, there's going to be a couple of modes that's fully centralized, where one is a PvP mode, and there's going to be a PvE mode where the in-game currency and the characters they receive are going to be centralized. And it's only when they want to play in the tournament mode, which, because it's going to be on-chain and it's going to cost gas to play, the rewards there will naturally be much better, and therefore it makes more sense to have higher security on there. So when they want to play on that mode, and when they want to trade, they have the option to actually mint their characters on chain, and then those characters are the Web3 part. So it becomes at that point it also becomes a mix of Web2 and Web3. But of course, because on the tournament mode, it's all fully decentralized. All the characters they use on that mode has to be NFTs and be minted.
Got it. Okay. Thanks for that answer, Teddy. Carlo, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so I've been looking to Dazzle since the beginning, I guess. It's great to see how it's evolving. One thing that's really important to state is that when Dazzle was starting being developed, a game like this could only be done like Web 2.5 with the assets online, an entire game logic off-chain, right? Off-chain without any guarantees. Like X Infinity, for instance, at the time, everything was on a server. Only your monsters were on-chain. You could trade them, but you couldn't really tell what the monster was. If they wanted to change the monster, nerf it, do anything, you had no transparency over it. For Dazzle is you can play it 100% inside a Cartesi machine. No one can tamper with a random number. No one can nerf your character or do anything like that. You can check everything. Everything's transparent and decentralized in there. And as Teddy said, the scale of the computations he does, it's huge. So you cannot really do that on chain. You will get bored just to play a single match on Ethereum. And he's doing it in Rust, which is super cool. His team is very proficient in Rust. So he could do some really interesting logic in there. He didn't have to mess around with Solidity and optimize for gas costs and slice the logic in multiple transactions or anything like that. He just wrote what he wanted for the game simulation. And that's just running inside a Cartesi machine, right? One thing I want to know more, Teddy, is where the inspiration for the events mechanism came from. Because it's something really cool, right? There are a couple of games that use it, like Fire Emblem. And I think it adds a lot of strategy to the game.
Carl, sorry, the last sentence kind of broke off, so I wasn't able to get that.
Yeah, where the inspiration for the elements that you use came from. There's a couple of games that use it, like Fire Emblem and stuff, but you do use it in a bit of a different way, right? Because you mix it with the puzzle gameplay itself.
So it's we've always liked puzzle games, and I think it comes from a background where me and Dennis we've always liked puzzle games, and we always liked fighting games, and also all sorts of PvP games. So for us, it's like when we've been wanting to make puzzle games where you have to care about the other person, and it's not like you're just playing by yourself. It's things like that. So even I think this is a good segue to mention it, but so even the version that I demoed, it's something that we don't feel like it's not up to our standards in terms of interactivity between two players. It's still kind of random, and you don't really have as much strategy as we'd like to. So one of the things that we've been working on right now is updating the core gameplay to turn it into more of a rock, paper, scissors kind of game where it's going to be where both sides are going to so we're planning on splitting the board into two halves where each player gets to move gems on their side, and then when they both each make a move, then there's an execution phase where the gems actually clear, and then they try to attack each other, and then because of that, there's going to be different ways to counter each other or have different strategic ways to clear stuff to overpower the other player. And another good thing that you mentioned is that because we're a Rust-centric team, it was very easy for us to use the Cartesi machine because we didn't have to change any of our logic. And recently, because we've been going through this core gameplay change where we've been actually migrating to a different game framework, we're actually migrating to using Bevy for our game engine. So now it's going to be even easier for us because previously we had to have a Rust backend and a Unity front end, but now we could just do everything inside Rust, including the Cartesi machine core logic.
Awesome, Teddy. I think what would be interesting is if you gave us a bit of maybe share a bit about like the long-term vision of Dazzle and like kind of expanding on what you just said about the next steps for this next version and like kind of the long-term vision for Dazzle would be interesting to kind of dive into.
Mm-hmm. So I think the long-term vision is that we want a game that's easy to jump on with a lot of depth for players to grow their characters. Well, actually, I'm not. Yeah, I think the long-term vision is that we do want some kind of way for players to grow their characters, or maybe even have different ways to have the NFTs interact with each other, to maybe merge or things like that. And then for on the Cartesi side of things, I'm not sure if it's going to be in for Dazzle, but one of the ideas that Max, we've talked about many times is that maybe have a mode where basically it's a custom game, kind of like old school Warcraft, where you could create different mini games or different set of rules, and you could create the mini game engines and put them on Cartesi machines. So it's going to be on chain. People could download the mini game and then run it with inside Dazzle to play with other players.
Yeah, I think that idea is really exciting. I think that kind of modding infinite sort of game creation possibility kind of vision within this by using still the same IP in a way, right? Is quite interesting. But indeed, like probably more something for long term. But
yeah, and you bring up a good point with the IP thing. So another dream that we've always had was being able to use like one IP in various games, and that's one of the reasons why we want our characters to be able to become NFTs and on chain. Is that if hopefully it's when we make a second game, it's easy for us to ingest those characters and use that for our other games. And hopefully we could easily collaborate with other game studios, and we could cross-pollinate and cross-promote each other's games because of that.
interesting, yeah. I've always had like not doubts, but like this IP question in Web3 is really difficult. Like obviously you have like Loot and those guys, but there's kind of this like reversed, like there's kind of like the opposite of incentives, like these incentives to like utilize other people's IP, because at least when you think of NFTs, often they're sort of also a funding mechanism, right? So if you're actually tapping into other people's IP, you kind of lose that potential avenue for funding, and but it is very interesting. So I'm curious how you think of that. Like what are the steps you would take to say kind of grow this sort of game network with shared IP, and maybe potentially also cross-pollinate with other game builders. Curious if what your thoughts there have been.
Yeah, so I think it definitely doesn't make sense for mid-sized to large game studios because they probably want to have their own walled garden and have their own IPs within their own ecosystem. It's likely going to start with the indie dev community because it's hard for guys like us to promote ourselves, and um, it's it's beneficial for us. It's more beneficial for us to work together and promote each other's works than it is to try to protect our own IP. Because if there isn't enough players playing our small games, then the IPs don't have value anyways. So it's much better for us to be able to sell these IPs basically. So I think fundamentally, when um, digital game asset NFTs take off, the business model of games is going to change. Is that it's going to be more about raising the values of your NFTs and trying to earn the money through royalties. Because when you make something that's very valuable, and the more games that use your NFT, that means the more value your NFT becomes. And when that gets traded, the more royalty you earn. So to me, that's going to be the meta game within the games.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic, but also really tricky. Because I think one term to use could be like kind of cosmetic composability versus like mechanical composability. And I'm curious, like, would you like say have like why would people use a certain NFT in a game? I think that's one question. Like, is it, are you thinking of this from the lens of, okay, they're a big fan of this NFT collection, they're just gonna use them, as a skin? Or are you thinking about it more from the angle of like, okay, this is gonna change the game mechanics as well, right? Because there's both sides.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it really depends on the creativity of the de- developers and also what kind of collaboration deal the studios reach. Because like suppose you have a game and you have a NFT that's, let's say it's a sword, and I have a first-person shooter game. So I have a few options. I probably won't be able to just import it as a sword because you don't want to bring a sword to a gunfight. But I could either make it into some cosmetic, like maybe a skin or maybe like a spray or like a hat. But I also have an option to maybe map that NFT into like one of the guns that I have in my game, and that's more involved, and we could translate it into something that's functional. But then that really depends on what I want to achieve. So if say we had a deal to try to cross promote each other, then I probably would put in more effort into that. If not, then it's likely the reason why I'd want to use to support that NFT is because I want to try to encourage players that play your game to also try out my game to give them a little bit of incentive boost.
I see. Yeah, it's an interesting topic. Have you like kind of followed the Ludic ecosystem a bit?
Not really.
Yeah, I wonder what the like learnings were there, because indeed there were a lot there's still teams building in the Loot ecosystem. Um, Often, however, they did have to create derivatives of the original NFT. Mostly, I think, for funding, right? But yeah.
Yeah, from what I'm aware, like yeah, the way they did it was definitely very interesting. Where the way they started off, and yeah, it's been a while since I last checked, but yeah, I remember there were a lot of derivative games that built upon that. So I guess that it goes with the same line of thought, where if there's a bunch of NFTs that people use, and you build something that supports the NFT, then you have a good chance of attracting the owners of the NFTs to try out your game.
For sure. Interesting. Someone in the audience or Glockchain just unmute himself. Great.
Hey, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts on like revenue models for Dazzle.
Mm-hmm. So there's going to be at least two that we're planning to do. So one is definitely through NFT royalties. The other is that we're also going to have some kind of, I guess it's going to be like a on-chain gacha where players can directly try to mint Dazzles using um, using our chain to generate them, and each time they roll, of course they're going to have to pay us a bit of money, and the other thing that we're thinking about is that similarly we might do a version of Gacha also on the centralized version in case that centralized users don't want to touch the chain. But then that's also kind of tricky because if players pay us, we would prefer to have them be minted as NFTs because we feel like that's the way for players to actually really own the assets.
All right, makes sense. All right, does anyone else have some questions in the chat?
I think there's one in the chat.
How do you think on-chain gaming will compare to traditional gaming in the future? Though the idea of owning game assets and our achievements sound interesting to a lot of us, the current gaming industry does not really seem to be thinking about it the same way and making use of such vectors. Thank you, Shotu. Yeah, Teddy, what do you think about that?
So, let's say, I feel like in the future there's going to be a good number of games that's going to be similar to what we're building. That's what we envision, is that once there's so my theory is that for this to reach mass market, it's probably going to start with the indie dev community starting like this kind of NFT game digital asset alliance where there's going to be a lot of games that support the same NFTs. So if you just buy one of these NFTs, you have benefits in like all of these games, and because of that, you'll want to try out these games, and then this becomes a huge force that actually is able to compete with mid-size or even AAA studios because it's safer for players to spend their money on those games than say like some mobile game where you could spend a bunch of money and then and then the assets could disappear after a while when the game shuts down. And so there's definitely going to be more and more games like that. And once that happens, I think the bigger studios will have their hands forced to also join in on the party. And so more and more games will have to do that. And there's definitely going to be some games, and depending on, I think, the more mature Web3 technology becomes, there's going to be more and more fully decentralized games. But for that, I feel like it's at least in the foreseeable future, I think it's going to be more constrained to games with higher stakes because of just the way that Web3 technology works, that where you have to spend tokens to do anything. So that naturally makes anything on there higher stakes.
Okay, thank you. Tutu, if that answers your question, if you have more, please feel free to. Okay, great. So Teddy, like thinking about.
No, so Teddy.
All right, go ahead, Carlo.
Hey,
Yeah, sorry. What do you think about having some sort of DAO with the professional players or some specific group that can actually, let's say, alter a bit the game conditions, right? So creating new items, merging them, deciding if they're balanced, imbalanced, all this kind of stuff that you have to do centralized traditionally as a developer, but actually having the community do it themselves, right? So they make sure that the game is fair, that there's nothing imbalanced, and all this sort of stuff.
I feel like it's definitely that I think somebody's going to try, and I actually am not sure what's going to happen there. It feels like it's either going to be a huge success or it's going to be a huge disaster, because when like I guess in a sense, because with the DAO, it's naturally going to be some kind of democracy, obviously, where the majority of the players prefer the change. But of course, it's also likely where, well, let's put it this way. So if when a game for a game design, if it's when there's a lot of players playing it, then obviously that's a positive thing, because the people are putting their time in there. But for the majority, I'm not sure if the majority is good at predicting whether a change is going to be good or not. I think that's the tricky question here, because as experienced game developers, we would like to think that our experience matters somewhat, where we could have a better idea of what to do with the feedback of the players and make decisions based off of it. But of course, it's also quite possible that we make mistakes too, and it's so I like the analogy to that too. I think like many years ago, where we had this Twitch plays Pokemon kind of social experiment, and if I remember correctly, it worked out at the end, but then it was also kind of chaotic.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting, but sometimes it's like giving a gun to a kid, right? They can just destroy the entire game mechanics, either by an attack, by having someone with a lot of voting power and just buffing whatever they have, making the game completely imbalanced as well, right?
Yes, exactly. I think it would be also fair to say be even more like giving a bunch of guns to a bunch of kids.
That's funny. No, super cool. I think let's see if other people in chat still have some questions. In general, Teddy, what are some questions or topics that we haven't really touched on yet that you wanted to explore?
Okay. I think for the most part we've touched on see why I'm doing this, my vision for the gaming future, why we like Web 2 and Web 3, and yeah, I think we've touched everything that I've wanted to talk about.
Okay. What are maybe some tips that you have for other people building on-chain games, or building games in general, and after these months or this period of time building Dazzle and working on Cartesi and stuff like that, what are some general tips that you have and things that would make their lives easier?
Yeah, I guess one tip for Web 2 game developers is that it's probably daunting to think about converting your game to Web 3 and to like fully convert it to Web 3. So my suggestion for that would be to first take baby steps, to just maybe take parts of your game and make that support Web 3. You could even do things like first you support other people's NFTs. Then you could think about minting your own NFTs, and then maybe also putting in some of your logic on Cartesi, just bits and pieces of it. You don't need to put everything and every step on there. And speaking of putting things on the Cartesi machine, one of the things that we've been thinking about and we're probably going to be exploring is that, so right now for Dazzle, we've been like having both players sign and submit all their inputs to the Cartesi machine on every single step. And that actually may not be completely necessary. It's as long as both players have, as long as a player you have the whole complete history of the other players' inputs and they're signed, then if you need to prove them on the Cartesi machine, you really just need to submit it at the end of the game for verification and for disputes, and that would greatly improve the experience of the game. Because otherwise, right now, for each input you make, you have to wait for the response from the chain, and that does slow things down quite a bit.
Got it. Okay, no, that makes sense. I think that's very helpful. Yeah, I think, okay, no, that was just Cynthia sending something very cool. If anyone has other questions, now is your opportunity. Teddy, what's next? I think you shared the links for social media, but like, when can people start playing? What are the like next actions that people can take if they're interested in continuing to follow you along this path?
Right. So right now, if people are interested in playing our not yet, our pre-alpha development build, they could just hop onto our Discord right now and just let us know if they want to playtest, and we'll send them to our testing channel, and we'll give them a link to our testing build right now. One thing that we're planning to do next week is to grow our community. We're going to be launching quest campaigns on Interact and Quest N and we'll be giving out NFT rewards for participation.
All right, and how do people, they just go in Quest Reward or something?
Yeah, so we're finalizing the details, but it's probably going to be something like join our Discord, follow us on Twitter, and probably also follow Cartesi Project Twitter, and we'll have like a small questionnaire like what's your favorite game genre kind of thing, and then we're setting up to be a lucky draw, so the campaign will last for 2 weeks, and at the end of the 2 weeks, I think 100 people will be chosen to receive the badge NFTs.
Awesome, super exciting. So guys, if if you're interested in that, please make sure to do that. And yeah, I think we can close this call. Really appreciate your time, Teddy. Thanks for giving us all these insights into your journey, and really hyped about Dazzle and where this is going. Any last words from you guys on stage?
No, just congratulations on Dazzle, and I'm really looking forward to playing it on in the 1.0 version. So yeah.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, thanks for having me, Max. Well, I think one last thing I wanted to mention is that I think I know definitely like for the Web3 side, for Web3 games, it's really, really cool technology, and they're with high stakes and GameFi involved, and there's also monetary value in there. But I feel like for this thing to really, really take off, we're going to need games that's going to be focusing on the fun part of games. And once we get like the common people to play, then this whole community will just really blow up.
100%. Great. I think on that note, we can close the call. Thanks everyone for taking the time to join and listen in. Thanks Teddy for coming to present and do this AMA, and we'll see you next month. Cool.